Karoline Leavitt wasn't always in the spotlight. In fact, her journey to becoming one of the most talked about names in media was anything but ordinary. Born and raised in a small town in New England, Karoline grew up surrounded by simplicity, a life filled with family dinners, Sunday church services, and quiet evenings spent reading books borrowed from the local library. Her parents were hardworking people who taught her the value of honesty, kindness, and perseverance. From an early age, Karoline had a curious mind. She loved asking questions, whether it was about why the sky turned orange at sunset, or how stories on the evening news came together. It was this curiosity that eventually led her to pursue journalism. Her passion for storytelling began in high school when she joined the school newspaper. At first, she wrote short articles about sports games and bake sales, but soon enough, her pieces started gaining attention. Teachers praised her for her ability to capture emotions in words, while classmates admired her knack for uncovering hidden details others might overlook. By the time she graduated, Karoline knew exactly what she wanted: to be a journalist who could shine a light on important issues while connecting deeply with her audience. College was where Karoline truly blossomed. She studied communications and interned at local news stations, working tirelessly to hone her craft. While many of her peers were content with writing fluff pieces or chasing celebrity gossip, Karoline gravitated toward meaningful stories. She interviewed struggling single mothers, documented the challenges faced by underfunded schools, and even traveled to neighboring states to report on natural disasters. Each story added another layer to her growing reputation as someone who cared not just about getting clicks but about making a difference. After graduation, Karoline moved to New York City, determined to make her mark. The city was overwhelming at first with its towering skyscrapers, bustling streets, and cutthroat competition. But she refused to let fear hold her back. Starting as a production assistant at a mid-sized TV station, she worked long hours, often staying late to help edit segments or research upcoming guests. Her dedication didn't go unnoticed. Within 2 years, she was promoted to field reporter, covering everything from political rallies to community events. Her natural charm and genuine interest in people made her interviews stand out. Viewers felt like they were having a conversation with a friend, rather than watching a polished segment on television. It wasn't long before bigger opportunities came knocking. A national morning talk show was looking for fresh faces to join. Their team and Karoline's name kept coming up in discussions. Producers were impressed not only by her professional accomplishments but also by her authenticity. There was something refreshing about her. She wasn't trying to fit into any mold. She simply was who she was. When the offer finally arrived, Karoline couldn't believe it. This was her chance to reach millions of viewers across the country, and she vowed to use the platform wisely. As her career skyrocketed, Karoline stayed grounded by holding on to the values instilled in her during her childhood. Faith, in particular, remained a cornerstone of her life. Every Sunday, no matter how busy her schedule got, she attended church service. Prayer gave her strength during tough times, and Scripture provided guidance when she faced difficult decisions. One of her most treasured possessions was a delicate gold cross necklace passed down from her grandmother. The necklace symbolized more than just faith. It represented love, legacy, and the lessons her grandmother had taught her about resilience and compassion. On the day of the interview with Tom Cruise, Karoline woke up feeling both excited and nervous. Interviews with A-list celebrities were always high-pressure situations, requiring careful preparation and quick thinking. But today felt different somehow. As she dressed for the show, she fastened the cross around her neck, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. It was almost as if her grandmother were there beside her, whispering words of encouragement. Little did she know, that tiny piece of jewelry would play a pivotal role in the hours ahead. When Karoline arrived at the studio, the energy was electric. Crew members scurried around, adjusting lights and testing microphones, while producers reviewed notes for the live broadcast. Backstage, she went over her questions one last time, ensuring she was ready for whatever direction the conversation might take. Tom Cruise was known for keeping everyone on their toes, and Karoline knew better than to underestimate him. Still, she trusted her instincts and reminded herself to stay true to who she was. As she stepped onto the set, the bright studio lights greeted her like old friends. The audience erupted into applause, and Karoline smiled warmly, waving before taking her seat. For a moment, all nerves melted away. This was her element, the place where she thrived. Yet deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that something unexpected was about to happen. And sure enough, within minutes of going live, the unpredictable unfolded, turning what could have been a routine interview into a defining moment in her career and in the lives of those watching at home. The live broadcast began with the usual buzz of excitement that accompanied any appearance by a Hollywood legend like Tom Cruise. The stage was set perfectly. The vibrant backdrop, the polished desk, and the enthusiastic audience clapping in anticipation. Karoline sat poised, her posture relaxed yet confident as she greeted Tom with a warm smile. He returned the gesture, exuding the charisma that had made him one of the most recognizable faces in the world. For the first few minutes, everything seemed to be going smoothly. They exchanged pleasantries, discussed his latest blockbuster, film, and joked about the challenges of filming action sequences. It was lighthearted, engaging, and exactly what viewers expected from such a high-profile interview. But then, something shifted. As they delved deeper into the conversation, Tom's gaze wandered slightly, landing on the delicate gold cross necklace resting against Karoline's collarbone. At first, it was just a flicker of curiosity, but soon his expression changed. With a playful smirk, he leaned forward slightly, tilting his head as if studying the piece of jewelry more closely. "Oh, I see we've got some divine intervention here today," he quipped, his tone teasing but edged with a hint of sarcasm. The comment caught Karoline off guard, though she managed to maintain her composure. A ripple of nervous laughter spread through the audience, unsure whether to take Tom's remark as harmless banter or something sharper. The camera zoomed in briefly on the cross, highlighting its simple elegance, before panning back to capture Karoline's reaction. She blinked once, her mind racing to process the unexpected turn in the conversation. Was this just Tom being his usual candid self, or was there more to it? Tom didn't stop there. Sensing he had everyone's attention, he pressed further. "You know, Karoline," he continued, his voice carrying a mix of humor and challenge. "In my line of work, symbols like that can be distracting. Don't you think it's better to keep personal beliefs out of the spotlight?" His words hung in the air, heavy with implication. The room fell silent for a split second, the kind of silence that feels deafening when amplified by millions of viewers tuning in from home. For Karoline, the moment stretched endlessly. This wasn't part of the script. No amount of preparation could have anticipated this curveball. Her heart pounded, but outwardly, she remained calm. She glanced down briefly at the cross, her fingers instinctively brushing against it. It wasn't just an accessory. It held deep meaning for her. It was a connection to her faith, to her grandmother, and to the principles that guided her life. To dismiss it as merely a distraction felt wrong, not just for her, but for anyone who found strength in their beliefs. As the seconds ticked by, the tension in the studio grew palpable. Some members of the audience exchanged uneasy glances while others craned their necks, eager to see how Karoline would respond. Would she laugh it off? Change the subject? Or would she address the elephant in the room head on? Everyone waited, with bated breath, including Tom himself. Though his demeanor remained casual, there was a flicker of curiosity in his eyes, as if he too wondered how far she'd go to defend her choice. Karoline took a slow, deliberate breath, buying herself a moment to gather her thoughts. She knew this was a pivotal moment, not just for her career, but for the message she wanted to send. Here she was, sitting across from one of the biggest stars in the world, under the scrutiny of millions of people. How she handled this situation would define not only her professionalism but also her character. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was steady, calm, and filled with conviction. "Tom," she began, looking directly at him, "this cross isn't just a piece of jewelry. It's a reminder of what guides me every day: kindness, humility, and purpose." The words flowed naturally, each syllable carrying the weight of sincerity. She paused, allowing them to sink in, before continuing. I believe our differences make us stronger, and sharing those differences openly is how we connect. If wearing this inspires even one person to reflect on their own values, then I consider it a win, for all of us. Her response was met with spontaneous applause from the audience, breaking the tension that had built up moments earlier. People clapped enthusiastically, some nodding in agreement, others visibly moved by her eloquence. Even Tom seemed taken aback, his earlier smirk softening into a look of genuine respect. For someone known for his boldness and occasional abrasiveness, Karoline's composed rebuttal must have struck a chord. He leaned back in his chair, giving her a thoughtful nod, signaling that he appreciated the depth of her answer. What made the exchange so powerful wasn't just Karoline's ability to articulate her perspective. It was the way she reframed the entire conversation. Instead of reacting defensively or shutting down, she turned Tom's question into an opportunity to share something meaningful. She didn't shy away from discussing her faith, nor did she try to impose it on anyone else. Instead, she highlighted universal values, kindness, humility, and purpose that resonated regardless of individual beliefs. In doing so, she transformed what could have been an awkward or confrontational moment into a moment of connection. Backstage, the production team watched the scene unfold with a mix of awe and relief. Live television was unpredictable, and moments like these could either derail an entire show or elevate it to legendary status. For Karoline, this was undoubtedly the latter. Social media platforms began buzzing almost instantly, with clips of the exchange spreading like wildfire. Viewers praised her poise, her intelligence, and her ability to handle a tricky situation with grace. Comments poured in from fans, colleagues, and even strangers, all expressing admiration for how she stood her ground without alienating anyone. Meanwhile, Tom appeared genuinely intrigued by the direction the conversation had taken. Perhaps he hadn't expected her to respond with such clarity and conviction. Whatever his initial intentions may have been, his tone softened noticeably as he responded. "Well said, Karoline," he admitted, his trademark grin returning. "You've given me something to think about." It was a small acknowledgement, but coming from someone of his stature, it carried significant weight. As the segment progressed, the atmosphere shifted entirely. Gone was the tension that had lingered after Tom's initial comment. Instead, the discussion became more open and reflective. Karoline steered the conversation toward broader themes, asking Tom about his own experiences with staying true to himself in an industry often criticized for pressuring artists to conform. Their dialogue took on a new depth, with both parties contributing thoughtful insights. By the time the segment wrapped up, it was clear that something special had happened, a moment of mutual understanding born out of an unlikely challenge. In the hours and days that followed, the impact of that brief exchange reverberated far beyond the confines of the studio. Karoline's name trended online, with hashtags celebrating her courage and authenticity dominating social media feeds. News outlets picked up the story, framing it as a testament to the power of respectful dialogue and bridging divides. Even critics of organized religion commended her for handling the situation with tact and inclusivity. For many viewers, it wasn't just about the cross around her neck. It was about the quiet strength she displayed in defending her identity, without diminishing anyone else's. Looking back, Karoline realized that the incident wasn't just a test of her skills as a journalist. It was a test of her character. And in that moment, she passed with flying colors. The cross remained around her neck, not as a symbol of controversy, but as a reminder of the values that had carried her through. One of which was the belief that authenticity always wins in the end. As the applause from the audience began to fade, Karoline felt a surge of confidence. She had navigated the unexpected challenge with grace, but she wasn't done yet. This was her moment, and she knew it. Instead of letting the conversation drift back to safer topics like Tom's latest movie or his legendary stunts, she decided to seize the opportunity to steer the discussion toward something deeper, something that mattered not just to her but to everyone watching. Tom, she said, leaning forward slightly, her voice steady and inviting. You've built your legacy on being fearless and unapologetically yourself. Isn't that something we should all strive for? Whether it's through your art or someone else's faith, staying true to who you are is what resonates most with people. Her words hung in the air, simple yet profound. She wasn't accusing him or challenging him directly. Instead, she was offering a bridge, a way to connect their vastly different worlds. Tom tilted his head, his trademark intensity softening into curiosity. He seemed genuinely intrigued by her perspective. For someone who had spent decades in the public eye, crafting an image and defending his choices, her comment struck a chord. You're right about that, he replied after a pause, his tone thoughtful. Being authentic is hard, especially when you're constantly under the microscope. But I guess that's why it's so important. The audience erupted into applause. Again, this time more enthusiastic than before. It was clear they were witnessing something rare, a genuine exchange between two individuals who, despite their differences, were finding common ground. The energy in the studio shifted. What had started as a tense and potentially divisive moment was now blossoming into a meaningful conversation. Karoline's ability to pivot the dialogue without alienating Tom, or the audience, was nothing short of remarkable. Sensing the momentum, Karoline pressed further. It's funny, she continued, her smile warm and disarming, how we often think our individuality sets us apart, but really it's what brings us together. When we share pieces of ourselves, whether it's through storytelling like you do, or through symbols like this cross, we create opportunities for connection. We remind each other that we're not so different after all. Her words resonated deeply, not just with Tom, but with everyone listening. In an age where division often dominated headlines, her message of unity and understanding felt refreshing. People nodded along in the audience, some whispering to their neighbors, others simply sitting quietly, absorbing every word. Even the crew behind the cameras, who typically focused solely on technical details, found themselves captivated by the unfolding scene. Tom, ever the seasoned performer, couldn't resist jumping back in. You know, he said, leaning closer to the desk. I've always believed that art has the power to unite people. A great film can make you laugh, cry, or even question your own beliefs. But hearing you talk about faith in this way, it makes me realize there are other forms of expression that do the same thing. Maybe wearing that cross is a form of storytelling. Your story. Karoline's eyes lit up at his observation. She hadn't expected him to frame it quite like that, but it was a beautiful way to look at it. Exactly, she said, her voice tinged with gratitude. Every day we tell our stories in small ways, in how we dress, what we say, and even what we choose to carry with us. For me, this cross tells a story of love, resilience, and hope. And if sharing that story helps someone feel seen or inspired, then I've done my job, not just as a journalist, but as a human being. The sincerity in her voice was undeniable. There was no trace of defensiveness or ego, just pure authenticity. It was clear that Karoline wasn't trying to win an argument. She was trying to foster understanding. And in doing so, she had accomplished something extraordinary. She had turned a potentially awkward confrontation into a moment of mutual respect and admiration. By now, the audience was fully invested. They weren't just clapping politely, they were cheering, whistling, and shouting their approval. Social media feeds were lighting up with reactions as viewers at home shared screenshots, quotes, and heartfelt messages praising Karoline's poise and wisdom. Hashtags like "Tightened Authenticity Wins" and "Our Karoline's Cross" began trending within minutes, sparking conversations about identity, faith, and the importance of staying true to oneself. Even Tom seemed moved by the response. Known for his larger-than-life persona and occasional controversies, he appeared humbled in that moment. You know, Karoline, he said, his grin widening, you might be onto something here. I'll admit I came into this interview thinking I'd have all the answers, but you've given me a lot to think about. Thanks for that. His acknowledgement drew another round of applause, this time accompanied by laughter. The tension that had lingered earlier was gone, replaced by a sense of camaraderie. Both Karoline and Tom had risen above the initial awkwardness, proving that even the most unlikely encounters could lead to moments of growth and connection. As the segment neared its conclusion, Karoline took a moment to reflect on the broader implications of their conversation. "At the end of the day," she said, addressing both Tom and the audience, "we're all just trying to figure out who we are and how we fit into this big, complicated world. And sometimes the smallest things, a cross, a role in a movie, or even a single conversation, can help us find our place. So let's keep telling our stories however we can, because those stories matter." Her closing remarks earned one final, thunderous ovation. The camera panned across the audience, capturing faces filled with emotion, some smiling, others wiping away tears. Backstage, the production team exchanged knowing glances. They had witnessed something special, something that transcended the usual boundaries of entertainment. This wasn't just another celebrity interview. It was a reminder of the power of vulnerability, empathy, and open dialogue. For Karoline, the experience reinforced everything she had worked for throughout her career. She had entered the world of journalism not to chase fame or fortune, but to make a difference, to give a voice to the voiceless, and to spark meaningful conversations. Today, she had done exactly that. The cross around her neck, once the subject of scrutiny, had become a symbol of triumph, not just for her but for anyone who dared to embrace their true selves. As the show cut to commercial break, Karoline exhaled deeply, feeling a mix of relief and exhilaration. She glanced down at the cross one last time, silently thanking her grandmother for the lessons she had passed down. Little did she know, this moment would mark the beginning of a new chapter in her life, one defined not by fear or doubt, but by courage and conviction. The studio lights dimmed slightly as the commercial break began, but the energy in the room remained electric. Karoline leaned back in her chair for a brief moment, exhaling deeply. She hadn't anticipated that the interview would take such a dramatic turn, but she felt proud of how it had unfolded. Across the desk, Tom Cruise was still seated, his usual confident demeanor softened by an unexpected vulnerability. The playful smirk he had worn earlier was now replaced with a thoughtful expression, as if he were processing everything they had just discussed. For Tom, this wasn't a typical interview either. Known for his bold opinions and sometimes polarizing statements, he rarely encountered someone who could match his intensity while maintaining grace under pressure. Karoline's responses had been measured yet powerful, challenging him without ever crossing into hostility. As the cameras went dark and the audience settled into their seats, Tom turned to her with a genuine smile. "You handled that beautifully," he admitted, his voice quieter now, almost reflective. "I've got to say, I didn't expect you to flip the script like that." Karoline chuckled softly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Well, you threw me a curveball, so I figured I'd return the favor," she replied, her tone light but sincere. Her words drew a laugh from Tom, breaking any lingering tension. For all his fame and larger-than-life persona, there was something disarmingly human about him in that moment, a reminder that even celebrities are capable of growth when faced with honesty. When the show returned from the break, the conversation shifted naturally. The awkwardness had dissolved completely, replaced by a sense of mutual respect. Tom, perhaps inspired by Karoline's earlier remarks about storytelling, opened up about his own journey. He spoke candidly about the challenges of staying authentic in Hollywood, an industry notorious for pressuring artists to conform. "It's not easy," he confessed, leaning forward earnestly. "There are days when you feel like you're losing yourself in the process. But then you remember why you started, to tell stories that matter, to connect with people on a deeper level. That's what keeps me grounded." Karoline listened intently, nodding along as he spoke. When he finished, she added her perspective. "I think we all struggle with that balance between staying true to ourselves and meeting expectations," she said. "In my line of work, it's tempting to chase ratings or trending topics. But if I lose sight of why I became a journalist, to amplify voices, to foster understanding, then I'm not doing my job right." It's about finding that middle ground where authenticity meets purpose. Her insight resonated deeply with Tom, who nodded in agreement. That's exactly it, he said, pointing at her emphatically. Purpose. Without it, everything feels hollow. Whether you're making movies or hosting a talk show, you have to know why you're doing it. Otherwise, what's the point? The audience, which had been buzzing with excitement throughout the segment, erupted into applause once again. This time, however, the reaction felt different. It wasn't just admiration for Karoline's poise or Tom's charisma. It was appreciation for the shared humanity they had revealed. People weren't just watching two public figures exchange ideas. They were witnessing a genuine connection, one that transcended professions, beliefs, and backgrounds. As the discussion continued, Karoline seized another opportunity to expand on the themes they had touched upon. You mentioned purpose, and I think that ties back to what we talked about earlier, the importance of being unapologetically yourself, she said, glancing briefly at the cross around her neck. For some, that might mean wearing a symbol of faith. For others, it might mean taking risks in your career or standing up for what you believe in, even when it's uncomfortable. What matters is that we stay true to our values, whatever those may be. Tom nodded thoughtfully, clearly, moved by her words. And sometimes, he added, it takes someone else to remind you of that. You did that for me today, Karoline. I walked in here thinking I'd have all the answers, but you made me rethink a few things. That's rare. His admission caught Karoline off guard, though she masked it well with a warm smile. She hadn't expected him to acknowledge her impact so openly, especially given his reputation for confidence bordering on bravado. Yet here he was, humbly admitting that their conversation had left an impression on him. It was a testament to the power of dialogue, not just talking, but truly listening and engaging with one another. The final minutes of the segment flew by as they delved into lighter topics, discussing Tom's upcoming projects and sharing laughs over behind-the-scenes anecdotes. By the time the host wrapped up the interview, the atmosphere in the studio was nothing short of celebratory. The audience stood to give both guests a standing ovation, their cheers echoing through the space. For Karoline, it was a surreal experience, one that reinforced her belief in the transformative power of communication. Backstage after the show, the buzz only intensified. Members of the production team approached Karoline to congratulate her, praising her composure and eloquence. That was incredible, one producer gushed. I've never seen anyone handle Tom Cruise like that. You turned what could have been a disaster into pure gold. Others chimed in, agreeing wholeheartedly. Even the crew members, who usually kept interactions brief, took a moment to express their admiration. Meanwhile, Tom himself stopped by Karoline's dressing room before leaving the studio. Knocking lightly on the doorframe, he stepped inside with a grin. Just wanted to say thanks again, he said, extending his hand. You gave me a lot to think about, and I appreciate that. Not many people can hold their own against me like you did. Karoline shook his hand warmly, feeling a mix of pride and gratitude. Thank you, Tom, she replied. This was an unforgettable experience for me, too. Who knows? Maybe we'll get to do it again sometime. They shared a laugh before he bid her farewell, disappearing down the hallway surrounded by his entourage. As the adrenaline began to wear off, Karoline sat quietly in her chair, reflecting on everything that had transpired. She had entered the IR day expecting a routine interview, but instead, she had navigated a high-stakes situation with grace and emerged stronger for it. The cross around her neck, once the subject of scrutiny, had become a symbol of triumph, not just for her faith but for the courage to stand firm in her identity. By evening, the story had taken on a life of its own. Clips of the interview dominated social media with hashtags like "Honoring Karoline's courage and the authenticity," matters trending worldwide. Viewers praised her ability to transform a potentially divisive moment into a unifying one, highlighting her poise, intelligence, and compassion. Journalists and commentators weighed in, calling it a masterclass in handling difficult conversations with dignity and empathy. Even late-night talk show hosts joked about the incident, though always with a note of admiration for how Karoline had handled herself. For Karoline, The overwhelming response was both humbling and inspiring. Messages poured in from fans, colleagues, and strangers alike, many sharing personal stories of how her words had resonated with them. Some thanked her for reminding them of the importance of staying true to themselves, while others expressed gratitude for her message of inclusivity and understanding. It was clear that the ripple effects of that single interview would be felt far beyond the confines of the studio. As she scrolled through social media that night, Karoline couldn't help but smile. The day had tested her in ways she hadn't anticipated, but it had also reaffirmed her purpose. She had set out to use her platform to spark meaningful conversations, and today she had done exactly that. The cross around her neck remained a constant reminder of her values, but now it carried an additional layer of significance, proof that authenticity, kindness, and courage could create moments of connection even in the most unexpected places. Little did she know this was only the beginning. The events of that day would propel her career to new heights, opening doors she hadn't imagined possible. But more importantly, they would solidify her legacy as someone who believed in the power of storytelling, not just to entertain but to inspire, challenge, and unite. The days following the live interview felt like a whirlwind for Karoline Leavitt. What had started as a routine morning appearance quickly transformed into a cultural phenomenon, with her name becoming synonymous with grace under pressure and unwavering authenticity. Social media platforms buzzed endlessly, dissecting every moment of the exchange between her and Tom Cruise. Clips of the interview were shared, reshared, and analyzed in countless threads, articles, and podcasts. Viewers couldn't get enough of how Karoline had handled herself, calm, composed, and unapologetically true to who she was. For Karoline, waking up to the overwhelming response was surreal. Her phone pinged incessantly with notifications from friends, family, colleagues, and even strangers. Messages poured in from all corners of the globe, each one expressing admiration or gratitude. Some wrote to thank her for standing firm in her beliefs without alienating others. Others shared personal stories about their own struggles with staying authentic in a world that often demanded conformity. One message in particular stood out. A young woman named Sarah thanked Karoline for inspiring her to embrace her identity, after years of hiding parts of herself to fit in. "Your words reminded me that being true to myself isn't just okay, it's necessary," Sarah wrote. Reading it brought tears to Karoline's eyes, reminding her why she had chosen this path in the first place. The media frenzy surrounding the incident only grew louder as time went on. News outlets ran headlines like, "Karoline Leavitt shuts," "Down Tom Cruise with grace," and "How one necklace sparked a national conversation." Talk shows invited experts to weigh in on the significance of the moment, praising Karoline's ability to turn a potentially divisive situation into a unifying dialogue. Even late-night comedians joked about it, though always with a tone of respect. Jimmy Fallon dedicated an entire segment to her, jokingly dubbing her the cross crusader of authenticity. He ended the bit by saying, "If anyone can make wearing jewelry controversial and then completely redeem it, it's Karoline." Beyond the jokes and memes, however, there was a deeper conversation happening. People were discussing topics they hadn't thought much about before: the role of faith in public life, the importance of embracing individuality, and the power of respectful dialogue. Op-eds popped up across major publications, exploring these themes through the lens of Karoline's interaction with Tom Cruise. One writer noted, "In a time when division dominates our discourse, Karoline showed us what unity looks like, not by erasing differences, but by celebrating them." Another article highlighted how her response exemplified emotional intelligence, proving that strength doesn't always come from confrontation, but from understanding. As the story gained traction, invitations began flooding in for Karoline to speak at events, appear on other programs, and collaborate on projects. Universities reached out, asking her to deliver keynote speeches during commencement ceremonies. Nonprofits requested her participation in campaigns promoting inclusivity and self-expression. Even brands wanted to partner with her, recognizing the value of aligning themselves with someone whose authenticity resonated so deeply with audiences. While some offers were tempting, Karoline remained selective, ensuring that any opportunity aligned with her values and mission. One of the most unexpected developments came when Tom Cruise himself released a statement later that evening. Known for his guarded nature, he rarely addressed controversies publicly unless absolutely necessary. Yet this time he broke his silence, posting a brief message on social media. "Karoline Leavitt is a force to be reckoned with," he wrote. "Her poise and wisdom during our interview today left a lasting impression on me. I admire her courage and hope we can inspire others to embrace their true selves." The post included a photo of the two of them shaking hands backstage, smiles lighting up their faces. Within minutes, it garnered millions of likes and comments, further amplifying the positive impact of their encounter. Tom's acknowledgement added another layer of validation to the experience. For Karoline, it wasn't about proving herself to him or anyone else. It was about fostering mutual respect and understanding. His willingness to acknowledge her perspective publicly spoke volumes about his character and reinforced the idea that meaningful conversations could lead to growth, no matter who you are. Amidst the chaos, Karoline made sure to stay grounded. She leaned heavily on her support system, her parents, siblings, and close friends who reminded her to take everything in stride. Her mother called her every day, offering words of encouragement and reminding her of the values they had instilled in her since childhood. "You've always been brave, sweetheart," she said during one call. "This is just the world finally seeing what we've known all along." Her faith also played a crucial role in keeping her centered. Each morning she spent time in prayer and reflection, seeking guidance and strength to navigate the sudden spotlight. The cross around her neck continued to serve as both a physical and spiritual reminder of her journey, the challenges she had overcome and the purpose that drove her forward. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry anymore. It was a symbol of resilience, connection, and hope. Despite the whirlwind, Karoline refused to let the attention distract her from her work. She returned to her duties at the morning show the next day, determined to maintain the same level of professionalism and dedication that had earned her the platform in the first place. Her co-hosts greeted her with hugs and congratulations, teasing her good-naturedly about becoming an overnight sensation. During the broadcast, they briefly touched on the viral moment, allowing Karoline to share a few thoughts. "I'm grateful for the opportunity to have that conversation," she told viewers. "But more than anything, I'm thankful for the reminder that our differences don't have to divide us. They can bring us closer together if we approach them with kindness and respect." Her humility only endeared her further to the audience. Instead of letting the newfound fame inflate her ego, she used it as a chance to amplify her message. In subsequent interviews and appearances, she emphasized the importance of staying grounded and focusing on what truly matters. "At the end of the day," she often said, "it's not about the accolades or the attention. It's about making a difference. One conversation, one story, one connection at a time." By the end of the week, it was clear that Karoline's career had reached new heights. Offers for speaking engagements, book deals, and partnerships rolled in steadily, cementing her status as more than just a television personality. She was now a cultural figure, a beacon of authenticity in an increasingly fragmented world. Yet, despite the accolades and opportunities, Karoline remained focused on her core mission, using her platform to uplift others and spark meaningful change. Looking back on the whirlwind of events, she felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for the success but for the lessons it had taught her. The experience had reinforced her belief in the power of vulnerability, empathy, and open dialogue. It had shown her that even in moments of tension or disagreement, there was always room for connection if approached with sincerity and respect. And perhaps most importantly, it had reminded her that staying true to oneself was not only courageous but contagious, an act that could inspire others to do the same. As she prepared for her next big project, a documentary series exploring stories of resilience and faith, Karoline reflected on how far she had come. From her small-town roots to the national stage, her journey had been anything but ordinary. But through it all, she had stayed anchored to the values that defined her. The cross around her neck remained a constant companion, symbolizing not just her faith but her unwavering commitment to living authentically. Little did she know this was only the beginning of a legacy that would continue to inspire generations to come. In the months that followed her now iconic interview with Tom Cruise, Karoline Leavitt's life transformed in ways she could never have imagined. What had started as a single moment of courage on live television blossomed into a movement, a ripple effect of inspiration that touched countless lives. People from all walks of life reached out to share how her words had impacted them. Some were young professionals struggling to find their footing in competitive industries. Others were parents trying to teach their children the importance of staying true to themselves. Regardless of their backgrounds, they all carried one common message. Karoline's authenticity had given them permission to embrace who they were without apology. One of the most profound examples came during a speaking engagement at a university commencement ceremony. As Karoline stood before thousands of graduating students, she shared her story, how she had grown up in a small town, fought hard for her dreams, and faced moments of doubt along the way. She spoke about the power of vulnerability, reminding the audience that success wasn't measured by perfection but by resilience. "You don't have to have everything figured out," she said, her voice steady yet warm. "What matters is that you keep showing up, authentically, bravely, and with purpose." After the speech, a line formed backstage. Students waited patiently to thank her, many clutching copies of articles or screenshots of her interview with Tom Cruise. One student, a young man named Marcus, approached her with tears in his eyes. "I've been hiding parts of myself for years because I was afraid people wouldn't accept me," he confessed. "But hearing you talk about your cross and why it matters, it made me realize I don't have to be ashamed of who I am. Thank you for giving me the courage to step into my truth." Moments like these reminded Karoline of the immense responsibility that came with her newfound influence. It wasn't just about being a public figure anymore. It was about using her platform to create lasting change. She began working closely with organizations dedicated to promoting inclusivity, self-expression, and mental health awareness. Whether it was hosting fundraisers, participating in panel discussions, or collaborating on educational campaigns, she poured her energy into initiatives that aligned with her values. Her efforts earned her recognition not only as a journalist, but as a humanitarian committed to making the world a better place. Her career continued to soar as well. The documentary series she had envisioned, focused on stories of resilience and faith, became a critically acclaimed project. Each episode highlighted individuals who had overcome incredible odds, weaving together narratives of hope, determination, and community. From a single mother raising her children while battling illness to a former inmate rebuilding his life through art, the stories resonated deeply with audiences. Viewers praised Karoline's ability to tell these tales with sensitivity and depth, capturing both the struggles and triumphs without ever sensationalizing them. The series also provided an opportunity for Karoline to revisit her own roots. In one particularly moving episode, she returned to her hometown, interviewing friends, family members, and mentors who had shaped her journey. She revisited the church where she had spent so many Sundays with her grandmother, reflecting on the lessons she had learned there about kindness, humility, and perseverance. The episode ended with a poignant scene of Karoline standing beside her grandmother's grave, holding the gold cross necklace in her hand. "Thank you for teaching me to stand tall no matter what," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. When the episode aired, it left viewers in tears, many saying it was one of the most heartfelt pieces of storytelling they had ever seen. As her star continued to rise, Karoline remained acutely aware of the importance of staying grounded. Fame can be intoxicating, but she refused to let it define her. Instead, she leaned on her support system, her family, friends, and faith, to keep her centered. Every Sunday, no matter how busy her schedule got, she attended church service, finding solace in the familiar rituals and teachings. Prayer became her anchor, guiding her through moments of uncertainty and reminding her of the bigger picture. And of course, the cross around her neck remained a constant reminder of her journey. The challenges she had faced, the victories she had celebrated, and the legacy she hoped to leave behind. Her relationship with Tom Cruise also evolved in unexpected ways. After their initial encounter, they crossed paths again at industry events and award shows, each time exchanging warm greetings and genuine smiles. During one such event, Tom pulled her aside for a private conversation. "You've inspired a lot of people, including me," he admitted, his tone sincere. "I've thought a lot about what you said that day, about staying authentic. It's not easy, but it's worth it." Karoline smiled, touched by his honesty. "We're all just works in progress," she replied. "The fact that we're willing to grow, that's what counts." Their friendship became a testament to the power of open dialogue and mutual respect. While some critics initially questioned whether their bond was genuine, those doubts faded as they continued to support each other publicly. Tom even appeared as a guest on one episode of Karoline's documentary series, sharing his own experiences with staying true to himself in an industry that often prioritized image over substance. His participation sent a powerful message about the importance of breaking down barriers and fostering understanding across different perspectives. By the end of the year, Karoline's impact was undeniable. She graced the cover of major magazines, headlined conferences, and received accolades for her contributions to media and society. Yet despite the external validation, her greatest sense of fulfillment came from knowing she had stayed true to her mission. She hadn't let fame distract her from her purpose. Instead, she had used it as a tool to amplify voices that needed to be heard. Her journey served as a reminder that authenticity isn't just a personal choice. It's a gift we give to the world. Looking back, Karoline often reflected on the moment that had changed everything. The day she wore her grandmother's cross on live TV and stood firm in her beliefs. That tiny piece of jewelry had become a symbol of so much more than faith. It represented courage, connection, and the enduring power of staying true to oneself. It was proof that even the smallest acts of authenticity could spark monumental change. As she prepared for her next chapter, Karoline knew there would be more challenges ahead, but she faced them with the same quiet confidence that had carried her this far. The cross around her neck remained a steadfast companion, whispering reminders of where she had come from and the values that would guide her forward. For Karoline Leavitt, the journey was far from over, but every step reinforced her belief that living authentically wasn't just a path to success. It was a path to meaning, purpose, and lasting impact.